Hey friends, it's Lisa Ziegler coming to you here for Ask a Flower Farmer, and as you can see, I am once again on the farm. So let me just fix this a little bit. There we go, maybe. So once again, Bobo and I have had to change our harvest based on rain coming. Pretty big rain coming later today and overnight and into tomorrow. So I am on the farm actually, and I thought before we jump into talking about whatever your questions are, we take a look at my harvest. But first, remember, if you want to post questions, I'd love to answer them for you. The little bubble at the bottom of your screen with the question mark in it is where you should put them. That way I don't have to scroll through all the names and maybe miss your question. So the first thing I want to show you, because I thought, shoot, we're here on the farm, we might as well take advantage of it, right? So first off, y'all, look at this. How beautiful are these? This is that annual baby's breath covent, and you can find it on our website. It's an annual, and it's got a sweeter little flower than that old standard that we actually, see in the commercial world, right? So we are birthing cool flower babies left and right here. And look, I'm just so impressed look at the high rate of germination of these guys. I mean, they really, really are overachievers. So I haven't grown these for several years. We've brought them back, and I'm really excited to grow them. So I'm going to actually take you down off of this stand, and we'll just take a little this harvest. Let me turn this around. They always change the icons from platform to platform. All right. So, and once again, y'all, Bobo and I and Suzanne were assured that we were not going to have enough flowers this week, but you can see that we are doing pretty dadgum good here. We only have 1 or 2 weeks left in our flower selling season, and it's always tough. So first off, the zinnia colors are just amazing at this time of the year. I'm going to walk down this side first. So first off, I wanted to say, you can see our little short Lizzies, and you guys remember, if you have questions, post them down in the bubble with the question mark so I don't miss them. What we do with our short stuff this time of the year, we have some of my mini sunflowers here that are mini, and they're short. And what we'll do is make those into, we'll have a Lizzianthus bouquet that's nothing but Lizzie, because they are so short, because customers love them. So what we offer to our members only market at this time of the year are just $20 bouquets. There's just one size. So we'll make one $20 bouquet out of that, and then we'll do the same thing with these mini sunflowers. We won't mix them in with the larger, bigger flowers here, but there are people that go for those right out of the gate. So look at these absolutely amazing zinnia colors, right? The coxcomb is really on its way out, and I've got stuff packed in here a little too tight. So we don't have a lot of coxcomb this week, but we do have some with a little bit pops of color. And we also don't really have any celosia spikes this week. Everything is coming to a screeching halt. I do want to show you guys a couple of new things. First off, these are our tuberoses, and you can see this is how we like to serve them, because they quickly open in the vase. And so those are really, really nice. But look at this, guys. This is sun hemp. This is the cover crop that we're growing out there that's 10, 12 feet tall. I have some in my house, and look at these sweet flowers. I have some in my house that is on day 4, and they still look awesome. So guess what? There's not many of them out there blooming. I'm trying to find a stem here. Look, I'm going to try to hold it up. So look at that, kind of a nice little thing. I have no idea if more blooms will open, but if it just holds the way it looks, we'll be in fine shape, and it has inside my house. But you would only grow sun hemp as a cover crop if you have a tractor, gang, because it is 12 feet tall. It is super, super tall. And look at this. I just got the best picture. This is Abelia. This is a shrub. We call it the bee shrub growing up because it really does draw bees. But this is from Bobo's garden, and she brings this to work every week. This stuff is absolutely gorgeous. So her little hedge of about 6 shrubs are like 25 years old. And y'all, you know what you learn when you're a flower farmer? You learn that cutting the heck out of your stuff makes it reinvigorated. She said that since she has been cutting her lobelia really hard like this, that her shrubs get better every single year. So do not be afraid to cut. Look at this. This is solidago. This is before it blooms. I mean, is this not the most gorgeous chartreusey looking foliage? And that is just the native brute. You know, the one, we haven't ever planted any, that just happens. Have a very small amount of our favorite Triloba. There's some mahogany splendor. This is a grass of which I cannot tell you the name of it. And we're trying to find the seed to add it to our mixed. I think it's called green Paul or something, green cat maybe. It's really pretty cool. Gumphrena, of course, and look at this. This is those salvias that we rooted each week on Facebook Live. You can go back and see how we did that on middle to early summer and middle of the summer. Each week we were taking cuttings of this. Salvia mexicana, Salvia leucanthia, and we'll see. Marigolds are always welcomed at this time of the year. And look at these killer sunflowers, y'all. How perfect are they? And then look at these gorgeous straw flowers. We have become straw flower maniacs. Totally and completely love them. You can now find the solid color seed over on our website. This is the gold. This is the rose. And I mean, it is just really, really useful. And I'm going to tell you this, and then we're going to actually jump onto our questions. Seeing as how there's 15 questions down there, gang. This crop was actually planted in very early spring, which would have been 6 to 8 weeks before our last frost, up in the garden at my church's child care. That, y'all, it has not been irrigated all summer. We just never got up there to rip it out, to replant it. And guess what? I mean, it is producing again like crazy. So I'm saying straw flowers can be succession planted to have a continuous supply, but leave some of the crop in because they will, if they are happy, they will really continue to reproduce. Sorry, y'all, I'm trying to get my seat. And then we have hydrangeas over there for filler. So, all right, folks, let's see what your questions are here. Oh, you don't want to look at my fuse box, do you? Well, let's do this without cutting you off. All right, gang. So I was trying to make it so y'all could see the flowers while we're doing this. All right, so we got a bunch of questions down here. So, Shady Maple Farm, I'd like to sow some perennial seed at my farm this year. Would you recommend sowing them in the fall as I would a hardy annual? You know what? I don't know anything. I don't know of any perennial that really benefits from being direct sown, so I am sorry. I have absolutely no experience with that. How do you direct sow feverfew and poppies? First off, we start feverfew indoors, and in fact, I have some that is just cracking. And we grow about 6 different, we grow all the feverfews that you find on our website. And we start them inside in soil blocks. And Iceland poppies, we definitely direct sow them. And y'all, literally, I dump the seed into the palm of my hand on a non-windy day. And don't put a ton of seed in your hand. Dump, 50. So you can pick up 1 or 2 seeds at a time. And I sow seeds every 2 inches. And that is a do not cover seed. So you just firmly seed it on the surface in the trough. And I talk about how I do that in Cool Flowers, I think, and then also our online course, Seed Started Made Easy. I do take you through direct sowing and the steps that I follow to do that. Tell me about your members only market. How many members do you have, Foothill Farms? So our members only market had 145 or 165 people. I kind of forget. What we've learned is about 20% show up a week, because we don't demand that people come every single week to pick up flowers. They come when they want. And it's a little different through COVID, contactless times. But that is something we talk about in depth in Flower Farming School, because that was really an amazing model for us, especially, and back before COVID, people would walk in here on Friday mornings and this is what they would come into. We have pre-made mixed bunches ready and waiting for the people that want to get in and out. But they could make their own. We sold shares to tons of churches that do church flowers, because this is what their ladies are looking for. So the members only market, because I had to do that to stay legal with my city. I couldn't have a farm stand or customers buying from my home. So they would pre-purchase through our website, or they could call, or they could actually buy more once they were here. Another share. But there really isn't, it's not like you have strangers walking onto your farm. That was the big thing for me. Let's see what else we have here. Sunflower Sky Farm, Zone 5, first frost technically October 15th, but often happens in September. Pro cuts are blooming at 1 foot tall with small buds. Is this weather or shorter day length? Probably both. Our temperatures at nights are 50 now. We get hot days, 80s and 90s, big temp swings. So for sure, day length definitely affects even day length neutral flowers. They definitely slow down and really try to hurry up and produce their blooms before their end of life comes, right? But I think the cool temperatures are probably hurting you more. But I tell you, the tip that Dave Dowling shared with me is, if you want to help your sunflowers grow taller before they produce their buds and blooms or open, is to string a lights in your field, and you only have to turn it on for about an hour up at midnight. It's called interruption light, and it's just a string of like 100-watt light bulb every 15 feet, and that will keep your plants growing more before they actually set the bloom. Hey Lisa, do you charge a delivery fee when you deliver flowers to florists, especially if traveling more than 20 miles to them? That's a really good question. So when I first started out, dinosaur years ago, right, I didn't charge a delivery fee. And then as I got busier and started delivering to a wider place, when we started adding new florists, I established a new method or a new rule. If they ordered $250 or more, no delivery fee. But if they buy less than $250, they would get a $12 to $15 delivery fee. And that really worked, because everybody bought $250 worth that didn't buy big standing orders each week. So the way you do that, and first off, your florists are paying delivery fees to every wholesaler. And some of them get multiple orders a day. It is really crazy. So it's all about the way that you present it to them. I say to them, so we have no delivery fee if you're buying $250 more per order, or it's blankety blank delivery fee. And people are fine with it. I'm late to start cool flower seeds indoor this year, but prepping for direct sowing. I was wondering if the floating row cover you sell is what you use, and how many seasons will it last? So that's a really good question. First off, everything that we sell is what I use. We don't sell anything that we don't use here on our farm. So yes, I use this very same Ag 19 row cover, and it 100% depends on how you treat it. When I was here as a lone person, my row covers lasted for years and years, but when you have other folks little things that they do. They drag it. They pull it across the top of woody stems and rip it. They drag it across gravel. It's the way they grab it and rip holes in it. So it's really, it's definitely lightweight, but I have no problem not having holes in it. I only use weight bags, and that's one of the reasons, so it doesn't put holes in it. And when I feel the need for a heavier blanket on my flowers or a heavier cover, I just double or triple it. Like if we're having an unusual single digit, weather for more than a few days, I will definitely do that. And I will tell you this, and I've said this, I'm saying this a lot over and over, but you have more wiggle room with planting transplants than you do with direct sowing, because think about this. If you prepare your beds for the transplants and have them covered, particularly if you hoop and row cover them even before you plant to help keep the soil a little bit warmer than the outside, once your transplants are ready, you just take them out and plug them in. Direct sown seeds definitely have to have heat during the day to actually sprout. So a lot of people feel like they need to rush to direct seeding if they're late, but in fact, it's just the opposite of that. Wanda asks, will status keep opening if you harvest it when the color is slightly showing? Nope. Status is just like zinnias and coxcomb. In my experience, it does not open anymore. So you have to resist that. I mean, especially when you're desperate for flowers. It's like a third open, and you want to harvest it, and not only does it not open the rest of the way, sometimes it can have a weak stem because of that. So status is a member of that group, just like coxcomb, zinnias, can't think of anything else, celosia plumes. What you cut is what you get. Do you need to harden off transplants before planting? So that's got two different answers, Molly. So with cool season hardy annuals, I have been known to take them straight from our grow room straight to the field when we're using hoop and row covers, because the hoops and row covers kind of provide that protection. Plus, plants can take cool to cold weather a whole lot easier than they can heat. I would never do that with warm season tender annuals, but with cool season hardy annuals, yes, I can skip hardening off on my carport because I'm using hoops and row covers, but I would never do that with warm season tender annuals. I would definitely do them. Warm season tender annuals get hardened off on our carport for at least 5 to 7 days before they go to the field. I'm surprised that though I'm zone 7 like you, my frost date is a month sooner. Too late to fall plant. Raisins and almonds, what a cute name. Yeah, people are very confused about all winter hardiness zone tells us, as far as cool flowers go, is what is potentially available for you to fall plant that's winter hardy in your zone. You would compare your winter hardiness zone to the winter hardiness zone of the plant. If it's hardy in your zone, you can fall plant it. Frost dates are a whole nother animal. People within the same zone can have very different frost dates. If you're in zone 7 and live in the mountains, you're very different than zone 7 for where 7B, 8A that I am, that's along the coast, right? So it's all about your frost dates. It tells you when to grow or what you can grow and when to plant it. And again, I want to say you can wiggle. You have more wiggle room with transplants, getting them out late. The big problem for most of us is really preparing the beds and having them ready and waiting, because once snow, rain, and ice start, if you go into that early in the season, you can't prepare beds. You have nowhere to plant them. So you need to start your seeds today, and then this evening you need to get out there and get your beds prepped and have them ready to roll. We use Bio 360 film for all of our transplants, so that keeps weeds from growing. Then we actually hoop and cover those empty beds if they're going to wait a while before they get planted, for several reasons. One, it keeps the soil a little bit warmer, keeps my golden retriever from walking on it, and it also keeps the deer from stomping all over it. So just a lot of really great reasons. Which type of solidago seed should I plant for a cut flower? Sue, I have no idea about which variety, because as I mentioned, this is the native that literally just showed up on our farm. And we have kind of allowed it to spread around. It's really a pushy bully, but we cut it so much that it kind of keeps it in check. I know that there are other varieties that are clumps, that don't reseed and spread, and that aren't quite so pushy. And that would be a question for someone that grows perennial. That would be a Dave Dowling question for sure. So sorry, I cannot offer any advice there. How long do you leave your stems in the bucket with the chlorine tablet? So that's a really great idea. All of these have chlorine in them. It smells like a swimming pool in here. And so these will be made into bouquets tomorrow and put into water, with a holding tea bag. And then it goes home with our customers on Friday, and they go home with flower food. Your stems need to stay in chlorine for at least 4 hours, but can sit in it up to 72 hours. And then it depends on where it's going. Ours would stay in this chlorine. If it was being packed to go to a florist, then we use, the plastic boxes that we get from our florist to pack their flowers in. We use tea bags, which you can find those on our website. The holding solution goes in that box with the water, and then that goes to the florist because they too don't want their flowers to move fast, right? They just want them to be well fed and bacteria to be killed. That's what the holding solution does. When we send these bouquets home with our customers on Friday, who are going to put them in a vase, we give them flower food. I thought I had some. Flower food for the end product. So I hope that answers that. Can you talk through Rudbeckia in the summer and into fall? Do you perennialize or replant each year? So that is a really great question. The farm at Clover Hill, Virginia. So there are some perennial Rudbeckias. There's nothing more confusing than this, right? This is true in dianthus as well. There are different types of growers within a family. So Rudbeckia, I'll think of two. So the only two that I know there's more, but I'm just saying my only two that I'm familiar with that are true perennial Rudbeckias is Goldstrom and Maxima. Maxima is that amazing. You've got to grow it, y'all. You can find it oftentimes. I don't start it from seed. I bought it at a native plant sale from my master gardener friends. The flower petals are like this big, and then the cone in the middle gets like this tall. It looks like a sombrero. If I grew enough of it to cut it, I would, but I don't because we leave it in the garden. I actually grow it outside of my kitchen window because it feeds the finches for weeks and weeks. It's just so fun. It gets about 10 feet tall. So those are perennials. I don't grow Goldstrom. That's not the best cut flower in my experience. But those are great garden plants. As cut flowers, I definitely grow and treat the rest of them regardless of what they are, but I feel fairly certain they're all pretty much called hardy annuals. We fall plant them and every year. Now, this is a deep subject, y'all. So I do have a huge bed of Triloba Rudbeckia, which does reseed, and I just let that reseed. It is so aggressive that it just replants itself, and it's a great habitat for wildlife. So I have an enormous patch of that is over there by itself. I have some other stuff growing in it, but not Rudbeckias, and just let that go at it. So I do not any longer plant Triloba every year. But all those other Rudbeckias that are amazing contributors to our cut flower production, Indian Summer, Goldilocks, Prairie Sun, Denver Daisy. We're growing Sahara again this year. I'm going to try it again. But I will be really honest, my favorites are Goldilocks and Prairie Sun. Both of them, Goldilocks is not very big. It's a smaller, totally double bloom. And Prairie Sun is the bomb. I would grow Prairie Sun all summer if I could figure out a way to get it to succession plant. You can plant it again in very early spring, but it just does not get as tall nor as productive. So that's what happens for us. Now, Triloba naturally blooms later in the season. Like you saw, there's a few stems here. We're at the end of that season. The Indian Summer, Prairie Sun, and Goldilocks are blooming for us in May and June. And the Denver Daisy. We love them all. And that is really kind of just my take on that. And y'all, I'm pretty tired today. I mean, Bobo and I just harvested all this mess this morning. I'm getting winded. Could you go over what it takes to start Bells of Ireland from taking out of the freezer? Also, do you keep all your cool flower seeds in the freezer for a while? Thank you. All right, Wella Garden. So we do store all of our cool flowers in the freezer. We put them into a Ziploc giant bag along with one of our big desiccant. Actually, I have them right here. This is what it looks like. Literally. So these were what were taken out. This is what Bobo has already started. And see our desiccant tab package? You can find those on our website. So the way that you do it properly is you put your seeds, when you get them, into that Ziploc bag, all of them, with the desiccant, and zip it. You leave it laying on a counter for 2 to 3 days. That allows the desiccant to actually get any moisture that could be in there. And you'd be surprised sometimes. And then we put them in the freezer. And they stay in there till whenever. I like for mine to be in there for at least a couple of weeks. And then we bring them out, and you have to do the very same thing you did going in. You have to lay them on the counter for 2 weeks. Do not open it because it will condensate. And let that desiccant do its job as it defrosts. And then you take them out and we plant them. And then I soak my Bells of Ireland at least overnight. I have been known to leave them for up to 5 days in moldy water, and they still germinated, y'all. Bells of Ireland shell is hard as a rock. And if you wanted to get it to germinate out in the garden, you have to water the heck out of it. Or you simply soak it. That softens the outer shell. You plant it outside when it's its right time. Cool nights, warm days, all cool flower direct seeding. And it germinates like gangbusters. All right, y'all, we're coming down to the end here. For direct sown seeds, how long do you give them to germinate before you replant for low germination? You should have a pretty decent idea of what the suggested germination time is, and then also what their conditions are. Famously, we have people that are eager to get started, and they direct sow their cool flowers way too early, and it's still too warm for it to germinate, and they just sit there. But of course, we know the weeds don't just sit there. They start growing, and people get very frustrated. I have found that when nighttime temperatures are diving to the low 60s, is kind of when our time to, I haven't direct sown anything yet here. We'll be doing that probably in a couple of weeks, because you have more failure from too hot than from too cool, perhaps. So, you know, I would look at what my conditions are, what they are supposed to be, and how long it's been. And sometimes you'll be surprised. For instance, what's a great indicator? I was just tearing out a bed of warm season from our no-till area, and that's where the cool flowers were last year. Well, guess what had reseeded everywhere? Bells of Ireland. So I screamed to Bobo, well, it looks like we should be planting our seeds, y'all. We have to look to nature for our cues. Although we were kind of having this little run of cool nights and cool days, but we're back to heat now, so I didn't do it. And no, we don't keep those I planted direct cover crop over there. So we, as a commercial professional grower, you cannot rely on reseeding stuff. I'm not saying that you can't make the most out of reseeded stuff, perhaps, but you can't rely on that. We look at it as a bonus when we come across something that's reseeded. I would never not plant full force of something because I thought it was going to something where else was going to be reseeded. how does days to maturity come into play for fall planted for hardy annuals? It doesn't really, because what's happening is you're planting them in so hardy annuals really are supposed to be grown in regions where they have these super long, super cold to cool, long drawn out spring weather. And then their summers aren't hot and humid, right? We're talking New England, right? Cape Cod kind of weather, where they can grow hydrangea mop heads out in full sun and not have them burn up. So what we've done is we've split their season. We're getting them in the ground, germinated and growing and getting established, and then we're sending them into dormancy all winter, and then they're restarting. So you really can't. I talk often about how things end up blooming out for me here on my farm, like what's the earliest, what snaps bloom first for me, but it definitely can be a little bit different for everybody else. But days to maturity, unfortunately, just does not work for that. What sort of watering schedule should be followed for transplants and direct seeded? So what our method here is, because I'm in southeastern Virginia, we get a generous supply of rain typically, and it all tends to come at once, kind of like what we're getting ready to have. However, we get 52 inches of rain a year here, and we get it pretty often. So when we are truly in fall conditions, that means cool weather, cool nights, coolish days, it's no longer going up to 90. When you water, it lasts a lot longer. I mean, you have to look at your ground, your soil, and really be able to tell that. But we literally water when we plant. We don't hook up our irrigation and run water through it in the fall, because we do not want to create a freezing potential problem, or for rodents, squirrels, rabbits, voles, whatever else you might have, to chew holes in our irrigation trying to get to moisture. So our irrigation is laid new by our bed layer, and it's never had water in it. Then it will be hooked up in the spring, but we do not use it to water. We water by hand if necessary, but here where I am, that's not necessary. But they're just like any other plant. You have to really water them in well. When you direct seed, we may water that every few days if it's not raining often enough. They definitely need moisture. You speed the whole process up, y'all. So you have to really gauge what I resist telling you what to do, because it's just like somebody asking about how can two of us in one zone have two different frost dates a month apart. None of us are the same. You have to learn the tools to use, y'all. I just did a podcast called No Free Fish Here. I'm teaching you how to fish. And that is the honest truth, that I'm trying to show you how to look at your situation and say, oh, these plants should really have moisture especially direct seeds, almost every day. If it's still not moist, you need to water. And literally sticking your finger in the ground will really tell you a whole lot. All right. Will your address questions that haven't been answered in this live some other way? Hunt country flowers. I totally wish that I could, but Instagram does not keep these questions. I have no access to them after this is over. However, I will say this, and then I've got to jump off here because I've got to go to the warehouse to get in time to do my 1 o'clock clubhouse. If you want to come over if your question was not answered, please jump over on Clubhouse. All you have to do is download the app and join over there. And you do not have to have an invitation. And I do exactly this. I talk for about 10 or 15 minutes. Today I'm talking about, I actually wrote it down but didn't bring it over here. Today I am talking about staging your flower farming business to succeed. It's not rocket science, y'all. You just have to show up and do the right stuff every single day. So please join me over on Clubhouse. And thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I loved sharing our harvest with you. And till we meet again. And this Friday, I'll be also doing Facebook Live where, we do a lot of hands-on and even more talking. So friends, I hope to see you at 1 o'clock on Clubhouse today. And then 6 o'clock Eastern Time Friday over on Facebook Live on my farm page. Friends, until we meet again. Ciao.